Hello, Soul Tribe. I'm KamalaDevi, and for those of you that don't know, I'm an author and a lead faculty for the International School of Temple Arts. I'm also a mystic and a muse, and today I'm musing on the full moon. So every month, I take some time to look in and reflect on what's been illuminated, through the month, and it's really powerful. Rhythm of ritual. This month is my favorite. It's actually October, building towards Samhain, which is the witches' New Year's. I'm a big fan of Halloween. And I actually love October because it also has National Coming Out Day. And as a tantric, poly, kinky, queer, gender transcendent. I use pronouns they, them. So I have a whole variety of sexual orientations and identities that I've come out as through the years. But I was reflecting on how the day before National Coming Out Day is National Mental Health Awareness. And I realized that's actually something I haven't come out about. So I thought I'd dedicate this video to mental health. And I'm going to first, come out, which is a difficult conversation. It's, it's a tender one. And hopefully anyone who sees this video will, feel more intimate, because that's what coming out does, is it creates an intimacy. It also, so it's dropping any veils between us. And then it's also for the purpose of empowering or role modeling. If you see in my share, if this is something either about yourself or about a loved one, it might empower a deeper, richer conversation about mental health. So for that reason, I want to come out about my mental health. And I also want to talk about the parallels, between mental health and sexual identity, and how it might affect our relationships. So, all right, that's that's the plan. And the piece that is harder for me to say is I've had various diagnoses through the past, and those have changed, and they have empowered me perhaps at the time, and then they've kind of restricted me or oppressed me or not fit me at other times. So I don't actually identify with these labels currently. But it's, it's part of my history. It's part of my brokenness, which has also led to my brilliance. The first time I had a mental health professional tell me that I had massive depressive disorder, and that was at age 16, when I was actually coming out as a lesbian at the time. So I was very confused about, like, am I depressed because I'm gay? Am I, maybe I'm attracted to women because the medication I was taking at the time was affecting my ability to orgasm, which it does. It can affect our whole relationship to sexuality. And then it was affecting it was a very confusing time to not know, to be diagnosed this way and to know that I was having these, this whole disorder. And that was one of 4 major, life-threatening episodes in my life. So I've also been diagnosed with a hypomania, as well as a postpartum depression after my son was born, followed by the most recent episode was actually a nervous breakdown, and that came with an acute anxiety and these seizures, these intense seizures that were not in the brain. It wasn't epileptic, so they're actually called pseudo seizures, but it was this violent loss of consciousness and involuntary body movement. And so these are various signs of chemical instability in my own history, which has a whole genetic link to it. Not only both my parents have dealt with mental health issues. My father, I'm a psychologist's daughter. that's a story in and of itself. But what's interesting is, some of the parallels, like between mental health and, various queer identities or labels. There was a time, like my mother's mother, like in the matrilineal line, like they called it hysterical. Like that's the term they used. And then as we learn more about psychology, the medical establishment may change its definitions, may change its understanding. And there was a time when being gay or intersex, or they had various terms for it, but they were considered mental disorders, and that's since changed. Like it's an evolving conversation, which is part of why I think it's so valuable to come out and to keep coming out. But there have been certain conditions that this is what was diagnosed then and now would have a totally different name. I know that when I, for example, also have complex PTSD, which is a fairly new understanding, is what does it mean to have childhood PTSD and how that impacts one's ability to be present. All the mental health issues can affect your work and can affect your relationships. And so one of the things, some of the parallels that I will say is that when coming out about who you are and how you want people to treat you, the best time to come out is actually when you feel most integrated, most stable, most accepting yourself. So I'm coming out to you currently in a time when I've got vast resources and experience. And so it's really, I wouldn't say it's easy for me to say this and talk about it, but I would say that it is like that I'm highly resourced. I'm not in a breakdown right now. And so that makes it easier. But if you're coming out as queer, a lot of times the reason people get upset or they have big reactions is because they're concerned about you. And the same with mental health. People are concerned about you, and then their reaction activates your reaction. And the best thing is if you are in a calm, accepting place, it allays their concern. And then if they're having a reaction, it's their reaction, it's not yours. So that's one tip. And there's also a piece around why to come out, right? It's just, it can be so valuable to, drop any pretenses, to create that intimacy, to endear some support. Unfortunately, both conditions, whether it's your sexual identity or orientation or your mental health, all these conditions have a lot of stigma, and that stigma and ignorance. People just don't know. Unfortunately, when I tell some people about mental health issues, they'll be like, oh, you just need to buck up and smile, or you're just trying to get attention, or everyone gets blue. And it's true. Everyone does get blue. And there's a big difference between having a few days where you're under the weather or sad or not feeling like going to work, and where you have like obsessive negative ideation and you're not feeling like yourself, and you can't you're not at choice about your own thoughts and feelings. So yeah, it's a huge difference, and it's so important to just give people the space and permission to be where they're at, and also to ask them, what do you need? If you don't have mental health issues, but somebody who does, it's really nice to be a good support for them, and to really just listen, like, what's that like for you? What can I do? What supports you? Or, would you like to call me when you're having these challenges? Which I'm laughing because I have a whole support system of people that if I couldn't call them, I couldn't get through it. So I like to outsource, crowdsource, a lot of support. And I want to just celebrate that amongst the many areas of support, such as nutrition and sleep and exercise and holistic practitioners, or maybe allopathic practitioners. It's really important to have community support as well. So this video is not about how to solve it, but it is a bit about normalizing it. Like, I want to make it known, not only do I have mental health issues and have had immense breakthroughs, but as a spiritual, sexual shamanic guide, a lot of the work that I do is in the spiritual realms, in the psychological, the subtle psycho-spiritual realms that we traverse. And people can have these dark nights of the soul, which looks like depression, or these emergence, spiritual emergence, which looks like a nervous breakdown. And it's really important that when we're navigating those territories to actually have psychological support as well. So, I want to claim I'm not a medical health professional, but it is very important to me to use the best of what we know of those sciences, and to absolutely call a therapist and get therapeutic help. It's so comforting to me when I'm working deep with with a practitioner who has their own therapist, and it's like, cool, I can work in tandem with that. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And I want to dispel this notion in the spiritual community that, oh, if you're having, psychological issues, you must just not be doing your spiritual work, or the idea that enough spiritual work or shamanic work or plant medicines is going to heal, these mental health disorders. And it's like, yes, there may have been indigenous tribes who used these to heal mental health disorders, but we now have access to all kinds of other support, and it's best to be holistic about that, and to really trust that each person has a different path and has to have a different, very unique treatment plan. And I'll just give one more example. When I had postpartum depression, and I had, it was really life-threatening, and I was nursing, and I was in a mama's group with other lactating ladies, and there was a lot of like peer pressure around being really natural. And when I needed antidepressants, there was a lot of shame around, like, oh, don't take Prozac, it'll leak through your glands and it'll poison your child. And and there was a lot of, and there's wisdom to that, like really being aware of what is the impact that your medication is going to have on your body, on your baby, on your family. But that's a very individual choice. And I ultimately ended up weaning my child so that I could go on antidepressants. But that process was one in which everybody had an opinion about what I should do with my body. And it's very valuable to get safe space to just explore the possibilities and get counsel. And so, yeah, I'm here to celebrate those safe spaces where we can have these conversations, sometimes very difficult conversations, and how valuable it is when we can just show up in love and support of the huge range of differences that people are, and to normalize, mental health is it can be debilitating and challenging, and it's something to accommodate and help integrate into, help people feel that, they're support them in doing the best they can with what they have, because each of us has our various challenges. And I'm just want to say, like, I'm really grateful for my own brokenness, which has led to my own, ability to have compassion and gifts. And there's a lot of really gifted people that don't have mental health issues directly, but can still help. And Yeah, so in celebration to the huge spectrum of diversity, and I'm just checking to make sure that I've covered what I wanted to say before inviting you to dive deeper with me. If you resonate with these musings and want more, join me for a whole list of fun invitations on my event calendar. Some of them are deep immersive retreats, and some are fun weekend webinars. My next one is about money as lever, so I look forward to that. Looking forward to connecting. Blessings.